Hey, my name is Josh Hageman with you at the Fluid Conference 2014. Fluid Backstage is an opportunity to share with the different main stage and conference speakers a little bit about what's going on in their lives. And today we have Leah McMillan with us from Tyndale. Leah, welcome to Fluid Backstage. Right off the bat, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what your role is at Tyndale and kind of what your passion is for this generation?
Sure. So I'm Assistant Professor of International Development. So that includes the typical professorial duties of advising, lecturing. The most exciting thing about my role is I run an internship program. So my students go overseas for 4 months or 1 term, different areas of the world from Lebanon to Thailand to Senegal, just doing internships, speaking to different individuals, sharing the love of Christ. And that's really where I come in. International development is about alleviating poverty and injustice. You don't need to do a Christian to do that, but my question is, how as a Christian can we do that as effectively as possible to do missions that not only reaches people for Christ, but at the same time improves their well-being?
Yeah, makes sense. So you probably meet with a lot of different young adults, and one of the things that I've noticed is that the average young adult doesn't really have much of a worldview when it comes to beyond North America. Care to comment on that?
Well, there's 2 things for that. Firstly, young adults with Twitter, different aspects of social media, really do have the opportunity to look at just different NGO sites. So I do think that they need to improve their understanding of world issues. But when we talk about missions, we really have historically simply looked at global missions. And if you look at the Bible, even in Romans, when Paul was speaking to everyone, he said, go into Jerusalem, Judea, and then to the ends of the earth. So missions includes everything. So if someone's not particularly interested in global missions, it doesn't mean they can't make a difference and do missions where they're from.
Now, in your experience, and I agree with that, it's a great philosophy, and our church and many local churches, we try and abide by that. Start with your home base, and then as you move forward, move on out into the rest of the world. And now, in your experience, is it working? Are these young adults grasping that, hey, I have a role here. I don't have to necessarily fly on a plane, go to Lebanon, but I can do and make a difference here in my own backyard? Are they getting that?
We have a lot of slogans to that end. So things like think global, act local. But I fear that there really isn't that reflection where people really think about what does that really mean. There's a lot of people jumping on bandwagons like fair trade certification. So they know that that might be a good thing, but there's no investigation of what does that mean. And as followers of Christ, in the scriptures, it's very, very clear that we need to take ownership. God gave us mental capacity. So we need to read through issues and really give young adults the opportunities to think about how can you really reflect on that so you are being and deciding and doing behaviors that scripturally make the most sense for you.
Does your job entail a lot of travel, or would you say that do you get to travel around the world and see a lot of these different projects, or you kind of your hub kind of home base here is in Canada?
My kind of 2 parts to that question. My home base technically is Canada. I teach at Tyndale, but the exciting thing about my job, working in international development, you have to travel, and if you don't travel, you can't speak to people about international issues. So the internship program, I normally do site visits. So I was in Rwanda last year, for example, visiting a student who was there. At the same time, I do research overseas. So I spent this summer in Ghana doing research on tourism and mining.
That's awesome. Now, I'm looking at your hand there, and I'm seeing one ring. It's a sparkly ring, but I'm only seeing one. I'm assuming you're engaged?
I am, yeah.
Awesome. Wow, that could have been a really bad faux pas.
Yeah. We're less than 2 months away.
Okay,
from the big day.
How does he deal with the amount of time that you take traveling? Is that one of the struggles that you guys would have, or is it just no problem?
Well, first of all, I'm based in Canada, but he's based in Dubai and works in Afghanistan. So right now...
Okay, now this just takes that conversation.
The fact that we travel is actually a really good thing because it means that we can meet. So he actually came with me on my Ghana research, which was great for some of the times. That it was nice having a male there just for cultural reasons, but also to give him a perspective on that. But I've also spent time in Dubai and Afghanistan where he works. So it's worked well for our relationship, the travel aspect.
What's your wedding date?
May 3rd.
Big wedding, small wedding?
It's a small wedding, depending on your idea of small, about 120 people.
Local or somewhere abroad?
Local.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, I wish you all the best in that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, going back to just what we've seen worldwide and so on and so forth, there is a word that relates well to young adults, and it's kind of a buzzword that's kind of floating around a little bit in circles. The word is revival. What does that mean to you and in your context?
Revival means, in my context, being Toronto, revival means more of the Billy Graham kind of conference where you have students come together. It's something like today where people really are, there's movement and people are discussing things. But I say in my context, and I like your question, was that, because my context being a Canadian Toronto is different from the context of someone living in Senegal or someone living in Thailand.
Yeah.
So if we're going to reach the world for Christ, the first thing that we need to do, and I would really encourage young adults to do this, when they want to reach a different culture, find out what revival means in that culture. And the definition could very well change. It might mean smaller conversations with people. It might mean something large, like young adults in Canadian society relate to, but it could be something completely different.
One of the challenges within the Canadian, even North American culture context with young adults is that they're starting to fall away from the church. Over the past 10, 20 years or so, studies have shown that there's a continual slide within the Christian church in Canada and the United States. Do you have any thoughts on this, why this would be happening, and if there was a solution to this, what do you think that could be?
Firstly, I was definitely one of the people in my early young adulthood, early 20s, who was one of the typical, grew up in the church, pastor's kid, and then myself started falling away from the church. And it really was when I went overseas and I saw Christians who had nothing, who had to rely on God, and when they pray and bless the meal, they're really genuinely thankful that they have food that day. And that really influenced me coming back home. So we don't need to travel, but we do need more of a global perspective. And we need young adults if we are going to solve this problem, because we want to be reaching the world for Christ, including Toronto and Ontario. Yeah. We need other aspects of church to come out, and for Christians to recognize that the heart of young people today is about reaching the world in a moral sense, in a way that we can ethically live. And those are all scriptural, ethical entities. We can see that in the Bible. It's the way that Jesus lived. But I fear that as Christians, we sometimes forget about those realities. So taking young adults, their hearts really are about globalization, missions, ethics. And if the church isn't providing solutions to those things, they reach out and they step away from the church so that they can be the moral individuals they wish to be. But Jesus calls us to do those things, so we need to better connect those two.
That's good. That's good. We're going to move into our rapid fire section, which is my favorite section of the interview. This is basically, I'm going to fire off a bunch of questions to you. You're not going to have more than a second or two to answer. The first thing that comes to your mind is the answer. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. Leah McMillan, Superman or Spider-Man?
Spider-Man.
Wendy's or McDonald's?
Neither.
Oh. Cardigan or tee?
Cardigan.
Okay. Hipsters or b-boys?
I don't know what b-boys are, so hipsters.
Hipsters. Olympics, single luge or double?
Ooh, single.
Okay. Luge. Mustache or beard?
Beard.
Okay. Breaking Bad's Walter White or Game of Thrones' Joffrey Baratheon?
Game of Thrones, no idea. That's my fiance, I would say.
Okay. Game of Thrones. BlackBerry or iPhone?
iPhone.
Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift?
Lady Gaga.
I love these
if
questions.
I have to choose one. She plays piano well.
Fair enough. Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Okay, where's Instagram on this rate?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. Starbucks or Tim Hortons?
Starbucks.
Bible question, ESV or NLT?
Ooh, ESV.
Last question. Mm-hmm. What is your hope for this generation?
My hope is that we get back to Scripture, back to Christ, back to Jesus' way of living, and that we recognize that if we're ever going to reach the world in terms of poverty alleviation, getting rid of injustices, that Jesus gave us the perfect example. We just need to really live out the Bible and what that says, and share the love of Christ with everyone around us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Leah McMillan, thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Fluid Backstage. God bless you.
Thank you so much, you too.